This is the lab review for lab number 2. So last week we did observations, and this week what we're going to do is we're going to look at actually doing the scientific process in a single experiment. So what you'll notice when you get on the Blackboard site is that there's a podcast located on the top of lab 2's folder. You just need to listen to the first 7.5 minutes of that, and they'll talk about body temperature and flu and stuff like that. So listen to that, and then you're going to summarize it. You will be listening to that whole podcast for the lecture section, but again, for the lab, you just need the first 7.5 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to run an experiment based on what was talked about on that video. So here it just tells you what we're going to be doing. Anytime you do an experiment, you have to have a question. We're actually going to have 2 questions. When you read this and listen to the podcast, you'll get an idea what those 2 questions are. And then you have to come up with a hypothesis. What is your educated guess on what will happen? Now for this one, it's a little bit easy because if you listen to the podcast, it will actually help you develop your hypothesis. The next thing it talks about is determining the independent and dependent variable in this experiment. So here it discusses the definition of independent and dependent. Your book has information, so if you need more on that, go to the book. If you still don't understand it, then go ahead and send me an email. But do make sure you look it up in the book because it may make more sense after reading that before you contact me. Okay, so then it's going to ask you what the independent and dependent variable is for one of the questions we're asking, not for both. So what you're going to need is the digital thermometer. Now I realize those have a little bit of an expense to them, but do understand that in most online science classes, you have to spend many times $100, $200 for the box with all the stuff in it. So I'm not making you do that. So there's going to be some expense, but trust me when I say that it's going to be minimal. You've got to get ahead on this experiment and pick up or stay with the due dates, or else you will lose a significant amount of points if you're not participating in the experiment. Here it goes through what you're going to do. I'm not going to talk you through that now. Just read the instructions, do what it says. But then what you're going to do is you'll see there's a second form. There's this lab form on the Blackboard site, but then there's also this data sheet. So what you're going to do is download this data sheet, and you're going to record your temperature in the morning, afternoon, and evening. And again, it explains the timing of that in the instructions, and you're going to do that for 5 days. Okay. It also tells you to type in the temperature out to 1 decimal point. Put 98.4, don't round it down to 98. If it's 98.8, don't round it up to 99. We need those decimal points. The other thing you're going to do so that I make sure that you actually somewhat completed this is you're going to take a selfie of yourself holding your thermometer, and then you're going to insert that picture into this form. And then you're going to submit that form. This will be due way before when the actual experiment or the write-up is due. Once everyone gives me this, or once the due date is passed, I will record everyone's numbers and I will send you a sheet. I will put in the lab, I will put the data sheet in lab 2, and those are the numbers that you will work with. So let me go back to the explanation. So here are your procedures. Okay. Then it tells you what you're going to do with the numbers. You're going to be taking averages. Again, it's not going to be your average. It's going to be the average of everyone's in the class. So that's why I have to have everyone's data early enough that I can give it to people, because you'll be calculating averages for everyone in the class. Now your numbers, specific numbers, will remain confidential. Not that your temperature is that deep of a thing for someone to know, but they will remain confidential. It'll just be numbers. Then what you're going to do is based on that, if you go back to lab information folder, you'll see what it takes to write up a lab report. So go back, look at that, watch the video, and then you're going to do a lab report at the end of this document. So this gives you some information on your graphs and what you need to include. You will need to have a graph for this for your results. I tell you what's in the graph. Again, you can make them with the graph paper that's included with the class, and then scan it or take a picture and then insert the JPEG into this Word document. Or you can make it, if you're good at Word or good at Excel, you can make the graph there, but again, it must be inserted into this document. Either way. So here's your title, just type it. Here's your introduction, type your introduction, put your graph in there, do your discussion, and then include your references. Again, please go back and make sure you watch the video and look at the handout for what is expected of a good lab report. Okay, what is expected of a good lab report. Also know that this will go through SafeAssign when you submit it to Blackboard, so I can make sure that you're doing your own work. If you have any questions, let me know. But again, this is just a review for Lab 2 and what you're going to be doing for that second lab. Have a good day or a good evening.